Hey, how's it going, guys? Domino Paris 21 here, and back again with yet another deck profile for you all. So, of course, my special guest I actually have for this profile is my good buddy ZachZag here. Say what's up.
What's up, Vanguard people?
I think we saw your thumbs, or hands. There you go. Yeah, Zach here, of course. Me and Zach here have been testing this deck, which, of course, is the Genovious ride chain build for Aqua. And we've been doing some testing with it, working out a few kinks and such with the deck, and definitely found a build that we both found that is really reliable and consistent for this deck. Now, when it comes to the Genovious Aqua, of course, it is a new variant for Aqua introduced in set 11 for English players, of course. And, you know, there's a little debate as to, you know, how good this variant is. I mean, I personally still feel that Maelstrom is really the way to play Aqua right now. But, you know, I guess you could say it's a little gimmicky, but it could definitely be a really good card in a lot of situations. And the deck overall can run really well when played correctly. So, yeah, we'll address a few of those things as we go through the profile. But, yeah, without further ado, let's actually get to it. So first off, for your starter, you have your Urza Scarlet. No, I'm just kidding. But, yeah, you know you guys like this double sleeve. But, yeah, it's really cool. Shout out to my buddy Vic for donating this sleeve to me. I like it. But, yeah, so now for the real starter. You have your starting Ripple Zero. I'm going to call it Ripple Zero. So this ride chain works just like the Spectral Duke ride chain. When you ride the grade 1 over it, check top 7 for the grade 2 or 3, add 1 to your hand, and shuffle your deck. So simple as that. And he's an AK base, so not much to say. Any Pioneers if you don't ride the grade 1. So, yeah. Free boosters, +1 either or, unless you whiff on the search.
Which is very likely.
Which I do all the time. I don't know why. Salt. Anyways, so grade 1s, of course, you have your 4 copies of your Ripple 1, we like to call it. 7k booster, just a good solid 7k, and I mean, you have to play it in the ride chain. Next is 4 copies of Mercenary Brave Shooter. Now, the whole idea with this ride chain is being very aggressive early on. It allows you to actually be a little more aggressive towards your opponent early in the game. And this card is really good. I mean, it is a K-clone for Aqua, so when he attacks, and you have 2 or less Aqua Rearguards against +3, so obviously, you know, attacks for 10k. Really good to hit some nice numbers early game. So ZachZag here is, of course, a really big fan of this card, of course.
Yeah, he's a good card. He's useful for the fact that you can extend your grade 2 or possible attackers to your grade 1 level, so having 10ks for your grade 2 even. And it's really nice for that fact of just saying, I want to commit, I don't have a grade 2 I can commit with, but hey, I got this grade 1 I can throw on the field and still make attacks of.
Yeah, so it's good, and it's a solid 7k, so really one of my favorite cards in the deck. And just make a little room here. You have your 4 perfect guards. You really can't say much about that. I still like 4 though. I just like to be able to draw these as quick as possible and do it.
If you need 1 at least for when you face break rides, that's what the game's become.
Yeah, it's just so power oriented late game. So I mean, worst case scenario, if you have too many in your hand, just drop 1 to boost. I mean, it's not honestly not that bad. So, and then last, of course, we have your 2 penguins, Light Signal Penguin Soldier. Now, I was originally running Torpedo Rush Dragon, which in situations he can help hit some nice key numbers, especially in the rear guard. But me and Zach actually were testing out the Penguin Soldier instead because, of course, being that this deck, it's a little bit on the aggressive side, of course, and it requires you to commit to your field a lot more than compared to other decks. He helps to replenish your hand. But Zach was actually the one who helped suggest this card for me. But what are some extra thoughts on this, Zach?
I just like these kind of cards because you can throw these guys as attackers. Your opponent doesn't want to attack them, so they allow you to get the card that you need to recoup, draw boosters, draw attackers, and still kind of be aggressive.
So yeah, I mean, plus he's a penguin with like little lightsabers. I mean, it's awesome.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah,
I mean, no more arguing there. So next up for grade 2s, you have, of course, your second stage of the ride chain. You have the Ripple 2.
Ripple 2.
But he's pretty much like, honestly, he's like really the best card in the deck in terms of skill. He's really what makes this deck pretty good compared to others, but yeah. Basically what he does, of course, is when you have him in Vanguard Circle with the
1 in the soul.
1 in the soul, he gains the ability of when he hits your opponent's Vanguard, you stand up one of your Aqua Rearguards, and that Rearguard gains +3k. So the whole idea with the deck is turn 2 on your grade 2 ride, you could be very aggressive towards your opponent, push out extra damage from at your opponent, or even bait out some extra cards from them. So yeah, it's a really good card. I mean, what I like about the skill, doesn't cost any counter blast or anything else. So It's a really, really good effective card. And Zach here, of course, he really likes this card a lot because, I mean, this really does suit his playstyle. But what are some extra thoughts you have towards this, Zach?
This card allows you to be aggressive without having to commit too much. So you can commit just 2 cards of the field. So let's say the 7k attacker or any of your other grade 2s for 1 column by himself. So you swing for 10 or whatever. Genovious swings, let's say 15, being nice. 15, he hits, you stand, you get to swing again. So that's 2 cards you come in with for 3 attacks. Those are great numbers. That you're forcing your opponents to draw more cards sooner. Or they have to play cards to retaliate against these cards. So they are now leaving themselves open for you to go after them.
So yeah, you could really push out a lot of damage turn 2 with this card. So really, really good aggressive card. Really loving this card. What's even nice is that, I mean, the right chain doesn't rely on the grade 3, so you can like actually splash this as another Aqua Force variant, so.
Yeah, he'd be great just to 2 in general because of how aggressive he lets your field be.
So yeah, really, really good card. Then next, of course, you have your 3 Tier Knight Lucas. Basically your main Libra clone. I mean, although your Genovious, he does use 2 Counter Blasts, you're not really expected to get the Persona Blast off more than once, really. But Lucas gives you some extra pressure to bait out some extra cards from your hands and potential pluses from that, of course. And being able to help draw in this deck in Aqua Force is very valuable because, I mean, you're going to be using up your hand a lot to try and create a good field. So yeah, really nice. And I like to damage sponge him because my opponents always go after this guy. So it's a lot of fun. Then, of course, you have your 2 Brave Shooter. So he has the same skill as the grade 1 we mentioned. It's a Better clone. You have 2 or less Rearguards and he attacks. He gets +3. Now, we only play 2. I was originally playing 4, but we actually decided, me and Zach actually decided to play 2 Lazarus. It was really, there's a lot of reasons to it, but Zach can actually explain it a lot better because he was the one who suggested it.
Yeah, you want the diversity with attackers. So, Genovious, his skill is to stand the field, so you're only going to make the use of what? This guy with 1 column. So I think it's better to have this guy sitting up or set up in a separate column just to make the full use of abilities. I mean, it's just as easy to set it as 10s, but this card in general allows you to be aggressive with your grade 2 right chain.
So yeah, I mean, that's really the idea with it. That's why we ran 4. But Lazarus is a good alternative to ride turn 2 because solid 10k is always good. I mean, and 10ks are always stable and consistent in just about any deck, especially in a beatdown style like this. So we definitely like to have a lot of varieties in our lineups. I know Zach especially does. The next up for grade 3s, of course, you have the main bosses. You have your 4 copies of Thundering Ripple Genovious. So he's a very, very interesting card. What he does is Limit Break 4. You pay the cost of Counter Blast 2 and Persona Blast, so you discard a copy of himself. When he attacks the Vanguard, just attacks the Vanguard, doesn't have to hit, you Persona Blast, Counter Blast 2, and then you stand up all your Rearguards. Now, on paper, this card sounds so, overpowered and so great, but it's a little gimmicky, and there are situations where, like, maybe he's not as great, but through testing, he does work when he works, but I don't know, Zach, what are some extra thoughts on this card since you have been testing this with me?
This card would be so much better if it was like really easy for you to make sure your opponent drops 2 cards per each Rearguard column. That would make this card nuts, but it doesn't really happen. It's not likely to happen, but he's still a good card because you can do the math. Let's say 18k attacking Rearguard column, so that's 1 card, 10k, 10k, then 2 cards probably for the Vanguard column. Stand it, another card, that's 5 cards.
Yeah, so I mean, like that, you could be, I mean, with the perfect field setup, I mean, you would go like 10k shield, 10k, stand up everything. I mean, that's like 40,000 between these two, and they probably will perfect guard the Vanguard. So it's really good to make those late game pushes to either win the game or create a big shift in momentum so that in your favor. So, I mean, the reason why we probably aren't crazy about the card necessarily is because there are some times where we don't get the Persona Blast off because this deck doesn't really have reliable draw power.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, it's either you draw into it, draw check it, or you just don't. But still a good card. But really the main card that we like to work with, especially earlier before this, is of course the 4 copies of Transcore, the Break Ride, introduced in set 11. What he does is when you ride an Aqua Force over him, your Vanguard gets plus 10k, and when your Vanguard attacks, your opponent has to discard 1 card. If they do not, then they can't call anything in Guardian Circle, and he gains a crit. So obviously your opponent has to discard. So the whole idea with the 4 Transcore is, since like I said earlier, you don't rely on using the grade 3 ride chain for anything really, because it doesn't really actually do anything with the grade 1 and 2. So you can just ride the Break Ride first, and you run 4 because like you can Break Ride over Break Ride, and to try and extract some extra cards from your opponent's hand so that once you break ride, usually let's say a second time, then your opponent already used up 2 cards from his hand from the 2 break rides, from the 2 times you broke road, and then they're going to have a harder time dealing with the Genovious Persona Blast. And it's 11k. But I don't know, Zach, what are some extra thoughts of Transcore in this deck?
Transcore is just a different form of aggression. He just straight out makes your opponent discard a card. So if you played the deck right, you've been aggressive early, your opponent's already less on cards. And they might just straight out discard a card and say no guard, and that's perfectly fine. And
sometimes even if you're behind in damage, he can help you make up for lost damage. So just a good solid card. I mean, obviously Transcore works better with some other bosses that's not out yet, but we're not going to get into that. But yeah, pretty good in the deck. You could play cards like Benedict or maybe Glory Maelstrom if you're a little bit more on the budget, but you know, Transcore is really ideal. But yeah, and of course with triggers, real quick because I'm running out of time on my battery. My battery's dying. You have 4 Supersonic Sailors. He can go in the solo to unflip a damage, which you'll really hardly do that often.
He does stuff.
I don't suggest doing that, but he gives you that option. Then you have 2 crits, 2 more crits. I run 3 of every kind, obviously, because make people think we run 12. So 8 crit, 4 draw, and 4 sexy legs. Heals. We don't play stands because Genovious stands things, but yeah. That's pretty simple. But yeah. Other than that, guys, as that was our deck profile, or technically it's mine, but Zach, of course, worked on it with me. But yeah, Genovious is a very fun alternative if you don't really want to play Maelstrom for Aqua Force, and really fun to play. As always, guys, don't forget to subscribe to ZachZag here. Really amazing player, a lot of great things to say about the game. And don't forget to leave a comment down below with any suggestions you'd like to see about the matches and any questions and concerns you may have. Well, other than that, guys, thank you guys again for watching, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.